Let's join. Good afternoon. We appreciate you setting aside 60 minutes to join us in our town hall webinar titled How to Keep Your Dental Practice Afloat During the COVID-19 Pandemic. For those of you I've not had the pleasure to meet, my name is Eric Fournier. I am a technology integration consultant with DPC. I'm accompanied by technology integration consultant Matthew Gasson, and then our founder and CEO Clay Archer. For those that are not familiar with DPC, we are a dental specific IT service provider with offices in Jacksonville and Orlando. And our main goal is to help doctors that are frustrated with their dental practice. They are confused with certain things, anxious with their IT needs, from email issues to software problems. From Open Dental, Dentrix, and EagleSoft, everything in between, we are here as a helpful hand. The purpose of today's webinar is to really learn how to best navigate through the current landscape utilizing our technology to be as efficient as possible. From working from home remotely to keeping team morale high until we get back into the office in person, these are some of the best practices that you can start implementing right away. And we're going to focus on 6 main topics today. Those 6 main topics come from our 18 remote IT rules that we recommend that individuals follow. So the 6 topics that we chose for you all are general working from home IT tips, cybersecurity when working from home, HIPAA guidelines and suggestions for working from home, how to utilize your office phone at home, how to get started with Tele Dentistry, and then lastly, the Paycheck Protection Plan overview. Now, should you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to share them in the Q&A section. We will answer a few throughout, and then we will have some time at the end to answer some. And then following the webinar, we will send out some beneficial links as well as the rest of the 18 tips that we have from our rules. So let's get started. Jumping right into the general tips and working from home. These are a couple quick things if you have not set up your home office yet that you can be thinking of as you transition into that. So rule and tip number 1 that we have is if you are going to be moving your computer physically from one space to another for more optimal workspace, whether that is within the office or within your home, a trick that we always use as an IT company is we take a physical picture of the computer before we move it, the cords in the back, the keyboard and everything up front, so that we can see the way it was set up, and it saves us time on the back end when we have to go and set up the computer. Oftentimes when we're left with 5 or 6 different cords, we don't know where things go, so we get very confused. So taking that picture is just a helping hand in setting up the computer. Transitioning into, sorry, I forgot to switch some of my slides here. Transitioning into the point number 2, which is the different kind of updates. So your staff is going to be working on their personal computers. And oftentimes, if you have a relationship with an IT company, they are doing the updates on the back end and you might not be seeing them. But now that you and your staff are working from home, you want to remember to do those updates yourself. Now, there's often tips that we can give you to remind yourself or to often set up the updates during off hours so that you're not getting updates in the middle of the day at home. But if you're not going through the updates, you become vulnerable, and it can allow an access point for a hacker to come in and ultimately get into your system. So the updates, even at home, are going to be critical just as they are in the office. So make sure that that is being relayed to the rest of the staff. And then lastly, something that we never really had to think about until COVID-19 came to be is a virtual way for in-office communication. Now, oftentimes we would just send an email to each other or a text message, but many offices want to find a professional, streamlined platform that they can use to communicate with each other. And the one that we use, the one that we recommend would be Microsoft Teams. Teams does a great job being a one-stop shop for a group message platform, a webcam platform, a file share location, as well as a calendar that everyone can refer to. I know a lot of people don't like change. They don't like implementing new things. I promise you, this is very easy. It's very simple. It is very streamlined to integrate into your office. One of the best things going on right now is Microsoft Teams is actually offering a free 6-month trial for any practice that is interested in joining. So should you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to your IT team or us to help you get started with that. We did just have a question come across for you, Clay, as it pertains to Microsoft Teams. It says, Clay, I know you probably have a lot of experience with Teams by this point. What is your favorite feature and why?
A couple things about Teams that I really like is one that it's kind of like this Zoom meeting. So you can do these kind of group meetings, but it combines that with file sharing and those other features. So it's part of the Office 365 suite. You don't have to have Office 365 to have this trial. You don't have to have email addresses and all that stuff. But you're able to, so if, let's just say Eric and I are working on this presentation. Eric, Matthew and I, we're working on this presentation. We can throw it into a team and then we can all edit the file together. So let's just say you're working collections with somebody. You have a front office staff member that is at home right now, and you want them to go down and work a list that you guys are working together for collections on for insurance or for whatever it is. You can throw that file up and share it together, and if they make an edit on it, you'll see that edit. It's also great for just this kind of real-time chatty kind of texting / video cam / whatever, where you can just quickly ping somebody, send them a file, send them a picture. I mean, obviously we have 17 or 16 people remotely right now, so they can just take a picture of something and share it with you. They can download an article, they can share it with you, but it's all in one spot. And it's just a really, really convenient. It's kind of like if you took Zoom, you took Google Hangouts, and you took SharePoint, which is a kind of an enterprise level Microsoft thing, and you crammed them all together into one. I threw in OneDrive on top of that, and then it's just in one product. And Microsoft has really, really, really done an incredible job with it. So I couldn't recommend it enough. It's free for 6 months. Hey, you can beat that. And there's no strings on that 6 months for free too. They're not like trying to make you forget and you're gonna give them your credit cards and then on 7th month they're gonna bill you. It's really a legit free 6 months. But you probably are best to do that through your IT provider. I'm not sure how you would do that without having an IT provider do it because it's a weird code from Microsoft where it is. But anyways, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
There you go. Fair enough. And hopefully this thing doesn't last more than just a couple more weeks or months. But as you had said, trying something for 6 months isn't the end of the world. All right. So transitioning into the cybersecurity tips, working from home. Let me preface this by saying most of these things happen when you have a professional IT company that's helping you in the office. But again, similar to the last slide, some of these things, the onus is going to be on you to have to put in a little bit of extra time to make sure you're being secure. So here are some of the tips that you can remember as you are working on your PC or on the laptop at home. First being the antivirus. So the antivirus and the malware tools are there to be a safeguard and a safe peace of mind. Similar to having a lock on your front door and locking it before you leave, having a antivirus and malware tool in place is just like putting a lock on your computer and then locking it when you are not there, or even when you are utilizing it, you keep your front door locked. So with that, make sure there's a reminder sent out to your staff members that they are also putting antivirus and malware on their computers as well. It's not just you, it's going to be an all staff effort. You all are going to be utilizing different things, whether accessing a OneDrive together or a SharePoint or maybe a Microsoft Teams. And if people are not using the most updated version of the antivirus and malware on their devices, again, that is another vulnerable piece in which a hacker can ultimately jump onto there. Transitioning into uninstalling unimportant things that you may have on your computer or on your laptop. It's always best to just do a quick scan and a quick clean of your softwares and uninstall them. Again, if we're not utilizing them and our main purpose of utilizing that computer is to work from home on it, we want to make sure that we're reducing any lag time and any vulnerable opportunities for a hacker to access our computer or our system. So we want to make sure we're putting in the right protocols and doing a quick spring cleaning, if you will, of uninstalling unnecessary programs. And then lastly, kind of being the first line of defense. So if you see something, say something as soon as possible. So the main thing with this is being curious, skeptical, and emotionally unattached to any content that may be coming through your computer, whether that is an email, a social media post, or a web page. Some red flags you might see here. If you see an email come through for, let's say, a confirmation that you had purchased something, but you don't remember or you know you did not purchase something, that could be a red flag here. Or if you see a social media post and you accidentally click on it and it takes you to a not legitimate web page, that should be something that should be of concern. And you should always reach out to your IT team members that you have to see if they can assist you through that. Ultimately, worst case scenario, if you know you've clicked on something bad, some things you can do right on the front end is disconnect from your VPN and from your network, and then immediately reach out to a professional IT team member. So those are some helpful cybersecurity tips. I do not see any particular questions around this slide, so I will pass it over to Matthew.
Thanks, Eric, for the introduction. Good afternoon. I hope you all are doing well. As mentioned, I'm Matthew, a technology integration consultant here with DPC. And I want to talk to you all about some HIPAA guidelines and some suggestions for remote working and how you can apply those. First, when using any third-party cloud applications, it's important to ensure you have a signed BAA, which is a business associate agreement. BAAs satisfy HIPAA regulations and create a bond of liability that binds those two parties. A few examples of those applications you may be using are Zoom Healthcare, Microsoft Office 365, or Doxy.me. If you're unsure whether you have one in place, we encourage you to reach out to your vendor and verify. Next, I want to talk about some measures you can take to stay more secure while working remotely. First is a simple step, but one that about 25% of remote workers fail to do, and that's lock your computer. This doesn't actually mean locking your computer in a safe or in the closet, but rather in the virtual way. We can all agree our working environments have changed, but the need to stay secure and compliant have not. Locking your computer prevents sensitive data from being accessed while you're physically away from it. As noted on the slide, here are some simple ways to execute this step. First, if you're a Windows user, you'll simultaneously press the Windows key plus L, or press and hold the Control-Alt-Delete keys and select Lock Computer. If you're a Mac user, then you'd press and hold the Control, Shift, and Power keys, which would also lock it. At this point, the computer would require a password to log back on, this ensuring you've done your part to protect the data that's on it. The second step is using the function of a password manager to create and store passwords. We've all fallen victim to the save password button or using the same password when accessing different websites. This allows your passwords to be easily swiped and opens you up to a potential security incident or even a loss of data. It's a little inconvenient at first, but sacrificing the convenience is well worth it to avoid a security breach or incident. If you'd like to learn more, we've included a link to a short video explaining how to do this successfully And as a note, we'll also be emailing that link out post this meeting. Lastly, we're going to talk about MFA, which is an acronym for either multi-factor or two-factor authentication. This is used when logging into various websites or programs with your credentials. MFA is essentially a second layer of security that is used to reduce the risk of intrusion by the bad guys. And we're trying to protect you from them. 99% of all account compromises can be blocked when utilizing MFA. And a few of the common MFA programs that you can use are Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. And in continuing with that subject, I'm going to pass it along here to Clay to speak a little bit more about utilizing your office phone from home.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. I just want to reiterate on some of that stuff that that Eric and Matthew just went over. I know that sounds really kind of like common sense or kind of boring computer nerd talk, but the fact of the matter is we on a daily basis at your office are doing a bunch of these items, we're performing these tasks on your computers. And we're in a very controlled environment where we know what the computer is, we know what the users are going to do on those computers. And when we start to work remotely, which has been a wonderful thing, most businesses are having some of their employees be able to work remotely. I mean, there's still insurance to file, there's still insurance to follow up on, there still is reappointing people, and life goes on. We are still having to do things to administrate our offices, but it comes with a responsibility, and we have to be aware as business owners that people's homes are not the same secure environment that we provide at our dental practices. And those are 6 items or 9 items we just went through that are from that 18-point checklist. We're going to send you that 18-point checklist to send to your employees or use yourself as you're working remotely. But at the end of the day, the reason that we get viruses, the reason we get crypto wall, the reason that we get people hacking into our bank accounts is because we are lax on these kind of procedures. And it doesn't need to be difficult, but as the leaders in your organization, we do need to keep communicated, because some things that sound like common sense to us don't feel that way to the end user. And just being made aware that, oh my gosh, I should have antivirus on this machine, or I should be making sure that my Windows 10 is got all its updates, or I should be locking my screen when I walk away from it. These are all spots that are that we recognize as big potential risks and open doors for bad guys. So I don't want to belabor the point, but I know some of that stuff sounds like boring homework you got to do. But when you don't control the environment, it's imperative that we speak with our staff and ourselves. Most of the times when we do have breaches, it is on the doctor's computers, that we are just using best practices when we're trying to conduct business. But this is going to transition over into kind of more the physical world here. But the ability to use your phones, your office phones at your homes. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a big change from, used to be you went to AT&T and you got your phones through AT&T, but now most people are using a VoIP system, and VoIP means voice over IP. And one of the biggest advantages of VoIP is that it is not location dependent. At least most of them are not location dependent. So what we did a couple weeks ago when we decided to start working from home is we told everybody, just take your phone home. Now, not all systems can do that, but most can. If you have a complete voice from us or you have Weave through us, you can do that, and you can just reach out to us and let us know if you want to do that. But the advantage of being able to do that is that the phone just works as if it's sitting at your front desk. So all of the features, your voicemail, if you want to change your after hours message, if you want to transfer the phone to somebody else. So right now, if I want to transfer this phone to Eric's house, I just push the button Eric, and it doesn't know whether Eric's sitting at his desk here at the office or at his house. I am the only person that is still at the office here, so everybody else is somewhere else. I can just pick up the phone and dial their extension just as if they were sitting in our office. That's been a huge time saver for us and logistics saver for us. Also on the VoIP systems, if you don't want to bring the phone home, you can use a cell phone app. So everybody can log into their cell phone just as their extension, and then calls are forwarded to them just as if they were sitting here at the office. You also can do it in a web portal. So if you want to check your messages, you can just click on a virtual desktop of your phone, and it will play your messages. And you can change your after hours stuff and the like, which is really great. Especially, you know, at some point we're going to go back online and we're going to have to appoint people, or let's just say the May deadline doesn't happen and we don't meet that. You're going to have to go in and reappoint all those people, and the ability to do that from just sitting in your living room, or to have 2 or 3 people to be able to do it from their living rooms and be collaborative, is really an awesome feature. Those features, and Matthew, can you show, is your phone that there? Yeah, so you, yeah. Matthew actually just has his physical phone sitting there. So you know, it's the same phone, just pick up and you just use it. So that really is pretty cool.
Hey,
so
Clay,
that, yes.
We did have a question come across. So with there being multiple phones in each office, is there a certain amount of phones that people can take home, or is it, you know, if we have 5 phones in the office, can all 5 phones be distributed to different staff members?
All 5 phones could go to distributed staff members. They're completely, all of those phones are just their own devices now, so they can go wherever. And beyond that, you could have 5 phones. Let's just say you're an office that has 8 people, but you only have 5 handsets in your office. You could have 5 phones at 5 of the office members, and the other 3 could have either an app or log on online and check the messages too. So if you did have a situation where maybe you wanted to have 1 person a day check the email or the voicemails, you could rotate that, and the person doesn't have to physically have the phone. They could check the voicemails from a computer or from the app. So that's the basics of complete voice. You know, this is a huge opportunity that's really teaching everybody a lot about the advantages of VoIP. But the reality of it is, in Florida, you know, we're evacuating probably every other year at this point, it seems like, at least somewhere that affects us as an office, as an IT provider. So the same thing happens if you are, you know, just going to Atlanta because a hurricane's coming up the coast. If you can just grab the phone and go, or use it on your phone, and you can be out of the office, reappointing everybody, continuing to work insurance issues, and work as if you are still at the office while you're not at the office. So just beyond this pandemic, I think that there is a real advantage of having phones. We also, the other phone system that we use is Weave. If you don't know about Weave, it is basically the same features of the phone, but it includes an app. And on that app, you're able to do some other things. And it is really kind of next level, and really awesome in this type of remote working environment. Weave does a bunch of things, but among the things that are really nice on is it shows your schedule information. So if you are doing a reappointing and that kind of stuff, everybody in the office can see that on their app. My wife is a hygienist. She loves the app because on Sundays, she looks at her Monday and she can see, oh, these are the people that I'm going to be on. I have to see on Monday. And thankfully, or hopefully none of them are her pain patients. She has other names for them. But anyways, it's really neat to be able to have those features built into your phone. The other thing that is really kind of the next level for Weave is it does the texting. So, you know, so many people nowadays would rather get a text than a phone. Obviously, people that are Eric and Matthew's age, much prefer getting a text than they do to a phone call. So you're able to do all that from an app on your phone or your computer. All the same features that we had in the complete voice one, but even to the next level. Yes.
We do have a few more phone questions that came in, but one I've not seen yet is, when you do bring your office phone home, how does the phone number move to your home, and how does the call forwarding work?
Okay, so basically when you bring that phone to your home, it basically gets a computer connection. So you do have one thing there. If you bring your phones to your house, you do have to hard plug it into the router. So what we've been doing is we just give you a long Cat5 cable. So wherever your router is, it's going to be in that room, which for everybody that we've done it for has not been an issue. But if your router is, on one side of the house and you're on the other side of the house, you are going to have to be on the side of the house where your cable modem and router are, because you have to plug into that router. But as soon as you plug it in, it just goes to the internet. It gets its sync with the VoIP provider in the sky, and it just works as if it's the same phone. So you don't forward it. You don't have to do anything. It just works as if it was at the house. At the office.
Got it. Okay.
So anyways, those are, obviously the VoIP, some VoIP providers do not have all those features. So I'm speaking specifically of complete voice. One question that I get a lot is, can Comcast do all those features? And Comcast does have some limitations on those features. So I'm not talking about just Comcast voice. Comcast voice is better than old analog phones, but it is kind of a hybrid and not quite all the way at that level. Weave does have all those extra features, but you're probably going to pay about $150 to $200 premium a month for those features. The people that do use those features in Weave love it and can find a definite advantage or a use case for that extra $200. But if you aren't going to use those extra features, I think that just a normal VoIP system is probably more appropriate, like what we use in our complete voice. So, and there are a bunch of features to Weave. I could go on and talk about Weave for a whole 30-minute webinar. It's an amazing, amazing product. If you are going to use those features, I do highly recommend Weave. It's good stuff. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to go over to teledentistry. So honestly, to tell you the truth, we had not done much with teledentistry at all. I get some articles that come across my desk. We talk a little bit about it in the Dental Integrators Association. But for the most part, it was kind of something that we thought was happening in the third world or something. I don't know. I just hadn't seen it around before a couple weeks ago, but in the last couple weeks, obviously, it has become a really hot topic. And the good news is there is some really good, there are some good solutions out there already. I will preface this by saying, and I am not the HIPAA expert. I would defer to Debbie Carr and to Linda Harvey if you have any real deep questions about the HIPAA concerns you would have with teledentistry, but I do know that the ones that I'm going to talk about are all HIPAA. They will give you a BAA, and they all comply with all the HIPAA rules. But I will tell you that very early in this pandemic and the shutting down of dentistry, I believe it was either the ADA or the FDA came out and said that the HIPAA enforcement around teledentistry, the rules are going to be relaxed a bit, which that's wonderful. But I still think, if you're our client and you are, by definition, going to be kind of held to a little bit higher standard, I still think it's pretty easy to comply with HIPAA rules and be able to deploy this quickly and inexpensively. So there's, what I am seeing right now is there's two kind of big time winners in the teledentistry field. The first one's being Doxy.me, and I really honestly think this is probably the winner for me at the moment. There are two versions of Doxy.me. There's the free and there's the $35 a month. The reason I put the green on the $35 a month is because I think if you are going to do even one consult, the $35 a month is probably worth it. You can go on doxy.me and take a look at the different packages and what they offer. But the paid version is going to give you the higher quality video, which is kind of nice. But the bigger thing in function, when we are having people deploy it, first of all, we get very few questions back on doxy.me. So that's great. The gold standard for us is if we adopt a new technology and nobody calls us about it, that means it's awesome. And if people call us all the time about it complaining, then it means it's not awesome. I know that's kind of a weird way to judge a technology, but especially with something that's evolving rapidly, if it just works and it's simple, it kind of goes back to the Office 365 in Teams thing that Eric was saying earlier. It's just simple and it just works. And doxy.me has been that for us. So, but the bigger thing about the paid version is that it gives you the ability to text and email, and it gives you a waiting room. So you're able to text a patient. They then get to respond to that text. They go into a waiting room. You can see them enter that waiting room, and they're able to do it over their cell phone, which I think is a pretty neat, way to do it. It also gives you meeting histories, and it also lets you take payments right there over doxy.me, which is nice if you're going to do a consult, that you're able to work that out. The payment right then and there, I think, is a nice feature as opposed to having to bill for it and everything. Although if you are going to bill for it, it does give you all that that kind of supporting documentation and everything that you will be able to use to file the insurance for those meetings. It has worked really seamlessly for us, and we've been really happy with it. Zoom is obviously Zoom is the belle of the ball. She's the darling right now, and everybody loves Zoom. But Zoom has had some issues. Zoom, you'll probably see a little bit out there that Zoom's been having some hacking issues. And not that I think that this is probably the world's worst spot that you would get hacked. It's the middle of a consult with somebody. Obviously, you would already be doing your best. You would be doing best practices by using Zoom Healthcare. And if it did get hacked in the middle of that one consult, I don't think your liability is super high. And I don't think that you would get hacked in the middle of it. But I do recommend that you use Zoom Healthcare as opposed to the free Zoom. Zoom Healthcare is fully HIPAA compliant, and they will sign a BAA with you. The only problem that I see with Zoom is I kind of feel like it is a tool for a bigger group. It is a tool that you probably would work if you were a 5 or 6 office healthcare facility, and you were trying to do bigger meetings, and you were doing lots of consults. I think that for the most of you that are single doctor or 2 doctor practices, that the doxy.me probably makes a little bit more sense, both financially and I think right now it's the better choice. If you were designing a practice that was going to do remote healthcare as probably your core competency going forward, I would then start looking at Zoom Healthcare. Or if you just really like Zoom and Zoom is just working for you guys and you're happy with it, $199 a month is a lot more money than $35 a month, but I don't think it's outrageous for a fully featured healthcare application. So that's it for that.
A question that came across for Tele-Dentistry was, hopefully once we get back to normal, is Tele-Dentistry still going to be something that you see people utilizing even once we're back in normalcy?
The first couple of people that did this were specialists, and you guys would probably know who they were around town, because it kind of made more sense for them. They're not emergent, but they do a lot of soft tissue stuff, and I think it made a lot of sense for them. So I would see that they would continue to use it. I would say, my staff asks me all the time about this remote stuff, like, hey, it's great. I get up in the morning, I'm more productive, and I've got all these metrics that we use internally that I can see that my staff is being really, really productive afar. And, they ask, hey, what is remote working going to look like when this is done? And the answer that I give them is, I don't know. But, I do know that if you use this now in Tele-Dentistry and it works for you, I don't know. There may be a place where it works, where you have maybe an elderly patient that maybe has some help with the technology or whatever, but it's not super easy for them to get to your office. Or you have a patient who just had a crown placed, and they at their daughter's wedding in Texas, and they just want to talk to you real quick. I don't know what the future looks like, but I will tell you, it's with the amount of remote work that we're doing right now, what is possible and what is normal is going to have changed after this event. It's kind of, I think this event is kind of going to be like one of those, I mean, obviously it's going to be a 9/11 time where, travel was different after 9/11 than it was before. And I will tell you that remote work will be different in the second half of 2020, once we're on the back side of this thing, than it was at the first half of 2020 when we started this thing. What that looks like, I don't know. But, at $35 a month, if you guys can go, you do, you see 3, 4, 5, 10 people during this time frame, obviously it'll pay for itself many times over, and you'll be able to provide a service to people that need the care. So what that looks like to me, I don't know. I'm not, obviously I'm not a practitioner either. Is that going to help somebody with a crown? I don't know. But is it going to help somebody that's got a lesion somewhere, or their tongue's on their tongue, or their, I can see that really easily that could be something that worked. So is that, any other questions on that?
No, that's the only one I had seen.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So this one's a little bit more, kind of business owner to business owner talk about the Paycheck Protection Plan. First of all, if you guys haven't applied for the Paycheck Protection Plan, I highly recommend that you do. I know that there's probably a lot of confusion out there. I mean, there is a lot of confusion out there, and I'm probably it's going to get a little bit of bad press. But I think ultimately is the gap. It's going to help close the gap between where we are now and where we are in a month or two, when we have some kind of better focus on what's going forward. Obviously, the intention of the plan is that we're able to all keep all of our employees. My company is very similar to your company. What we sell is the people, right? We're both service oriented businesses, and we've all worked really, really hard to accumulate the staff that we have. And if I was to survey everybody and say what's the most time consuming, expensive, and ultimately the biggest pain in the butt that you have, it is finding good staff and retaining good staff. So the underlying theme of the plan is that we're able to keep our staff through this process without having to let anybody go. The government would rather us do it at our level than put those 10 to 20 people into the unemployment system and have to deal with 20 individuals as opposed to one individual. But there have been some hiccups in this process. If you have not already registered, I highly recommend that you do register, and obviously reaching out to your banker. I will say that your bankers right now are being just completely flooded with requests. They're quite flooded with answers, so they may not be as responsive right now in this process as they typically are to you. That is not their fault. It's just they are, they're getting a ton of requests, and they have all their other business that they have to handle as well. So I highly recommend that you have filled it out. Obviously, there's going to be a pre-approval process. Some banks have been better about communicating through that pre-approval process than others. But I would encourage you to just kind of stay the course on that. Obviously, the funding schedule right now is really the question. People were applying on Friday. They're applying through the weekend. They're applying into yesterday. Wells Fargo said they would put a cap on the number of people. Then today they're saying they're not. So the funding schedule is really up in the air right now. I don't know anybody that has gotten funded yet, but the process is supposed to be that once it gets through your bank and to the SBA, that's supposed to be funded relatively quickly. The bigger question there to everybody is obviously people have payroll and you have payroll to make. So there are going to be, if that funding schedule goes out a week or two, and I'm not a banker, I'm just a small business owner, but I have been kind of talking to our peer groups and dentists and, kind of going through all of our experiences. And I'm just sharing my experience. And it's just one business owner to another business owner. But if that funding schedule goes out further, then obviously we're going to have to cover more payroll out of operating expenses, or some people are furloughing employees, hoping to bring them back as these things are funded. So obviously there's some tough decisions there to be made, but I think the biggest thing there is to be communicative with your staff and your team. Even if it's just, hey, I just don't know, I've submitted and we're looking, my banker is telling me that it's going to be this week or it's going to be next week. I think it's imperative that those lines of communication between you and your staff are open right now, and that you're having those conversations. The thing about staff is obviously if you don't tell them anything, you have no idea what they're thinking. So being clear and being the leader at this time obviously is more stress on us as business owners, but I think it has never been a more imperative time to be communicative and letting the staff know what's going on. Unfortunately, that's all I really know about the PPP at this point, but I would say don't be discouraged. I'm fairly certain that if you get your applications in, that they are going to be funded at some point. I don't think they're going to turn people away. The issue that Wells Fargo had over the weekend is Wells Fargo does have some restrictions on it because of getting in trouble last year. So they are supposedly lifting those restrictions, and they're going to reopen those lines. So I just implore everybody to be persistent on that. One other thing, and I'm getting some clarification on this through the Dental Integrators Association and their legal team, but I do believe there's some pretty positive signs that our payments, the payments to us, are going to be reimbursable under the PPP. I can't confirm that yet. I'm still going through legal, but I'm pretty sure that that is going to happen. I will send out information on that when that does become real. But they're going to treat us like a utility. So that's all I've got on the PPP. But I encourage everybody to be communicative with your staff on all these issues. Really, it's time for us all to band together as teams. We're all in this together. We're all in this together as a community. There is the 18-point checklist that we're going to be sending out, and we'll send out there was a couple of links to some videos that we will send out to everybody that was registered here as well. But at this point, I'll take any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, we do have a few questions that came across. One being, if we were to start implementing Microsoft Teams, how would one actually call everyone on the staff? So I can take this from kind of a high level answer here. So within Teams, it allows you to create essentially different teams, different groups. So you could have all of your hygienists together, assistants, admin staff. You could have a team that is all office. And within that team, it's going to give you the ability to call everyone at once. So if you are the admin of the team and you press the FaceTime button essentially that is on that team, it is going to reach out to everyone and allow them to either answer or decline the call. Similarly, we just had a staff meeting this morning, all 16 of us, and it was as simple as our service manager calling everyone that is in our all office team, and it called everyone and allowed us to join on via FaceTime essentially. So that was a Microsoft Teams specific question. Another question we had come through, and I will pass this over to you, Clay, is in terms of the malware and the antivirus, is there a specific brand that is typically best practice for dentists?
Yeah. It's a loaded question because it changes with the tide. So I would probably say just use the Microsoft Essentials that's included with Microsoft with their their Windows 10 licenses. Everybody gets it. I think that's good enough to be to just kind of be an easy answer. There are better solutions out there, but that's free. It's included with the Windows itself. Malware, I would say Malwarebytes if they're going to do Malwarebytes, if they're going to do a malware program. There was one slide in there that Eric went through on the removing software. We kind of all know what that is. That's we'll call it the Napster software. It's the software that you probably shouldn't have on your computer, but you have on your computer. So those are the things like where you're going to get it. So you could, best practice probably, at a total cost of zero would be to make sure that you have Microsoft Essentials, the built-in Microsoft antivirus, and that you do a free scan of Malwarebytes on your computer to set up as a baseline. That'll just get you ahead of the crowd, making sure that it's free. During that process that you're using it as a home computer for your work, I would say I would be just very cautious. Either Matthew or Eric had a slide in there about kind of see something, say something. Just start treating your home computer like it's the work computer, and minimize what you're doing on it. That is, don't be downloading the latest version of the Avengers or whatever on that computer, because that's, at the end of the day, those are the type of activities that scare us. What will happen, just in all practicality, is somebody will put on what they call the keylogger. It's a piece of malware, and it just sees all the keys people are typing. And so when they log into your Dentrix from there, or your EagleSoft or whatever, or your Wells Fargo account from their computer, as they're typing in those things, the bad guy in Russia or wherever he is sees, Dr. So-and-so, enter bank account number, enter password, enter mom's maiden name, enter. And those are the kind of things that we're just trying to avoid. So Microsoft Essentials, Malwarebytes, anti-malware scan, and just good, safe practices. Again, those are all kind of in that 18-point tip sheet that you're going to get here in a couple minutes.
Yeah. And then one question around the VoIP system. If someone is to bring their phone from the office into their house, when they receive calls and when they call outside, is the phone number that is shown on both receiving ends the office number or their house number?
It's all the office number, just as if you called from the office.
Gotcha.
So everything's just as if it was in the office. It doesn't know. The phone that you have sitting at the front desk of your office right now, if it is Weave or Complete Voice, it does not know whether it's sitting in the front desk of your office or it's on the QE2. It does not know the difference. It just knows it's connected to the internet and that it is front desk 1 at that office. That's all it knows.
Gotcha. And then the last question here was, whether someone who already works with DPC or not, if they don't already utilize DPC services, are they able to still sign up to do so even remotely? Essentially asking, if they're not someone who already has the services of DPC, are we able to help them even though we wouldn't physically go into their office and set up our equipment to help them?
Yes, I would tell them to reach out to us. I mean, obviously that's not super duper descriptive, but yes, I mean, right now, 90% of our offices we're doing remote work for. So the only things that we are doing right now is things that are A, in an empty office. We're finishing up some projects in an empty office. B, your server is on fire and we need to be there ASAP. Or C, we have some construction projects that are, again, empty spots where we can be safe. We also do ask that if we do go on site at your office, that you provide masks and gloves to our technicians. That seems to be a pretty easy request at this point. We haven't had anybody push back on that because you guys have gloves and masks.
Gotcha. All right, I think we answered majority of the questions here. So moving on just to this slide. So we're doing a really good job being able to push out some content to help anyone and everyone during this pandemic in terms of, tips and tricks, working from home. What about the actual office? There's a lot of expensive equipment that's sitting in there. What should we do with that? How are we being able to secure that down? So there's a lot of tips that are being pushed out through our social media platforms. So feel free, if you're not already following us, to follow us and just to get some of those tips and tricks. And then if there's any specific questions you had pertaining to the webinar itself, pertaining to what we could do to assist you all, we really want to be able to help out anyone, obviously being dental specific, dentists in particular, that need our support and need our help. No question is a dumb question. Feel free to ask us anything. There's our email and our direct line. And with that, as I mentioned before, and as Clay had mentioned, we're going to send out some more links and materials for you all as it pertains to this webinar and the 18 remote IT rules. And with that, everyone have a good rest of your afternoon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. See you guys.